We live in the most connected era in human history. Never before have people had so much access to one another. Never before have we been able to see, hear, message, and interact across continents in seconds. Never before has information moved so fast, or pleasure been so immediate. And yet, never before have so many people felt so lonely in their own relationships. Never before have marriages struggled so quietly. Never before has intimacy been so misunderstood, so rushed, so fragmented, and so easily replaced with substitutes that promise closeness but deliver distance. This is not an attack on technology. Technology is not evil. It is a tool. But every tool shapes the hands that use it. Every environment reshapes the heart that lives inside it. And today, technology is reshaping sex, intimacy, and marriage in ways we are only beginning to understand. We scroll endlessly. We swipe casually. We watch desire on screens. We simulate closeness with pixels and notifications. And slowly, quietly, something sacred begins to erode. Intimacy is not just sex. And sex, when stripped of intimacy, becomes something hollow, something mechanical, something transactional. True intimacy is presence. It is attention. It is vulnerability without an audience. It is being fully seen by another human being and choosing to stay. Marriage, at its deepest level, was never just a legal arrangement or a social contract. It was meant to be a sanctuary. A place where two people could remove their armor. A place where desire was built on trust, not novelty. A place where passion deepened through familiarity, not excitement through constant replacement. Technology has altered how we pursue pleasure. It has altered how we define connection. And in doing so, it has altered how we approach one another. The brain does not distinguish between artificial stimulation and real intimacy the way the heart does. Dopamine does not care whether desire comes from a screen or a spouse. It only cares that it is triggered. And when stimulation becomes effortless, unlimited, and instant, patience becomes obsolete. We train ourselves to want without waiting, to consume without commitment, to seek novelty instead of depth. And this is where intimacy begins to fracture. Because intimacy requires effort. It requires discomfort. It requires silence. It requires staying present when things are not exciting. Technology teaches us to escape discomfort, not to move through it. When boredom arises in marriage, technology offers distraction. When conflict arises, technology offers avoidance. When desire wanes, technology offers replacement. And slowly, couples stop turning toward each other. They sit beside one another while living in separate worlds. They sleep next to one another while emotionally miles apart. They touch screens more often than they touch each other. This does not happen overnight. It happens gradually, quietly, in moments that seem insignificant. One phone at the dinner table. One late night scrolling instead of talking. One moment of choosing stimulation over conversation. One habit formed, then another, until intimacy becomes something remembered instead of something lived. Sex, in this environment, begins to change. Instead of being an expression of connection, it becomes a performance. Instead of being rooted in emotional closeness, it becomes influenced by comparison. Instead of being slow, responsive, and attuned, it becomes rushed, scripted, and pressured. When people consume sexual imagery constantly, expectations shift. Desire becomes externalized. Bodies become objects. Moments become scenes. In real human connection, with its imperfections, unpredictability, and vulnerability, starts to feel less stimulating by comparison. But the problem is not that marriage lacks excitement. The problem is that technology has trained the nervous system to crave intensity instead of intimacy. Intensity is loud. Intimacy is quiet. Intensity demands attention. Intimacy requires presence. Intensity burns fast. Intimacy grows slowly. Marriage was never meant to compete with an endless stream of stimulation. It was meant to offer something entirely different. Depth instead of novelty. Safety instead of performance. Connection instead of consumption. But depth requires discipline. And discipline is something technology slowly erodes. We become accustomed to instant gratification. We become uncomfortable with waiting. We become restless when things are not immediately rewarding. And intimacy, especially long-term intimacy, is not immediately rewarding. It is built in shared mornings, in difficult conversations, in forgiveness, in choosing each other again and again when the spark fades and must be rekindled intentionally. Technology does not teach us how to stay. It teaches us how to move on. Swipe, scroll, replace. And when that mindset enters marriage, commitment weakens. Because commitment is not about always feeling desire. It is about choosing love even when desire is quiet. It is about nurturing connection instead of seeking escape. Many couples today do not lack love. They lack attention. Their energy is scattered across devices, feeds, notifications, and virtual worlds. And intimacy cannot survive fragmentation. Presence is the currency of intimacy. Where your attention goes, your desire follows. Where your attention goes, your emotional bond deepens. If attention is constantly given to screens, intimacy starves. This is not about blaming technology. It is about reclaiming agency. Because technology does not force us to disconnect. It invites us to. And we accept the invitation far more often than we realize. The solution is not rejection. It is intentionality. It is choosing moments of disconnection to protect connection. It is creating spaces where devices are absent and presence is required. It is learning to be bored together again. To talk without distraction. To touch without urgency. Marriage thrives on rituals, shared meals, shared silence, shared laughter, shared vulnerability. Technology disrupts rituals by making everything optional and interruptible. But intimacy requires consistency. It requires showing up even when there is nothing exciting to consume. It requires staying when leaving would be easier. Sex, when rooted in intimacy, becomes something profound again. Not a performance, not a comparison, not a demand, but a conversation without words. A place where trust is reaffirmed. A place where connection is felt, not displayed. This kind of intimacy cannot be rushed. It cannot be multitasked. It cannot be distracted. It asks for your full self. And that is what technology often pulls away. Yet there is hope. Because awareness changes behavior. And behavior reshapes relationships. Couples who intentionally limit digital intrusion often rediscover each other. They remember how to talk. How to touch. How to desire slowly again. They realize that what was missing was not attraction, but attention. Marriage is not failing because people are incapable of love. It is struggling because love is competing with endless alternatives for attention. And love was never meant to compete. It was meant to be chosen. Every day. Intimacy in the modern world requires courage. The courage to be present. The courage to be seen. The courage to resist constant distraction. It requires choosing depth in a culture that celebrates surface. It requires choosing commitment in a culture that rewards convenience. Technology will continue to advance. Screens will become more immersive. Stimulation will become more powerful. But the human heart has not changed. It still longs to be known. It still longs to be chosen. It still longs for connection that feels real. Marriage, at its best, answers that longing. But only if we protect it. Only if we guard intimacy like something sacred. Only if we remember that desire is not sustained by novelty, but by presence. So if you are married, ask yourself this. Where does my attention lie? Where does my desire flow? Where do I escape instead of engage? And if you want intimacy to grow again, start there. Turn toward your partner. Put the phone down. Sit in the silence. Speak honestly. Touch slowly. Let intimacy breathe again. Because no technology, no screen, no simulation will ever replace the power of two people choosing each other fully, intentionally, and repeatedly. And when that choice is made, marriage does not merely survive the digital age. It becomes a refuge from it.